What's up, everybody? It's Soren Baker here on Unique Access Entertainment. As always, please hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. That enables us to keep coming to y'all as often as possible with as many interviews as possible and commentaries like this one as possible. So please hit that subscribe button, like our content, share, talk about it, be about it, each one, teach one. And thank you for those people who have been supporting us here on our membership drive early on in the game. Davita Chanel was our first, so please join her in becoming a member of the Unique Access membership program. And we also want to give a special shout out to Garrett Hicks and Mark Fuller III for supporting us on Cash App. Hitting us directly that way also is greatly appreciated and helps us in so many ways as we hope to keep growing our channel. That's just $, Unique Access ENT. You can also find it on the website here on the Unique Access Entertainment channel. And that just helps us in so many ways. So please, if you don't mind, you could join us in our membership program here on YouTube or hit us up on that Cash App, $ Unique Access ENT. Now, for today's episode of the 1st and 15th, man, this is a topic that I've been hearing about and people have been allegedly lamenting for so many years, which is why I wanted to talk about it, man. This is the Sophomore Jinx. Now, this is something that I remember reading about as a kid in different magazines, and I never really understood what they were talking about, but really it's people saying that after a great first album, the artist is going to fall off and man, they haven't been the same, this and that. And I remember thinking even back then that was kind of weird, although I could think of a few examples of it happening. But what I'm here today on the 1st and 15th is to tell y'all why that whenever you hear that Sophomore Jinx thing, it's ludicrous and it's definitely not true whatsoever. And I'm going to break down several prominent examples, and y'all can hit us up in the comment section down there and let us know some of the ones that either you think were Sophomore Jinxes or ones like the one I'm bringing up that are definitely not Sophomore Jinxes. So I'm going to go chronologically, and we'll start with the best rapper, the GOAT, the greatest all time, LL Cool J, because when you go back and look at Radio, released in 1985, this is one of the early rap albums, because back in 1985, not that many artists were putting out albums, not that many groups were putting out albums. It was still very much a singles driven business. And for LL Cool J to come out in 1985 with Radio was a huge, huge thing. And then, of course, the album is phenomenal. I Can't Live Without My Radios on there, Rock the Bells, I Need a Beat, Dear Yvette. There's so many great songs on there, and that album has been sampled hundreds of times. So clearly, people definitely were checking for Radio by LL Cool J way back in 85. But as my first example of why this Sophomore Jinx thing is a myth, it doesn't exist, it's ridiculous that people say it does, is when we get to 1987 with LL Cool J and Bigger and Deffer. Now, in my opinion, this is one of the best rap albums of all time, and a lot of people don't look at it that way, unfortunately, I think because other albums may have more higher profiles for whatever reason. But Bigger and Deffer, phenomenal, produced by LA Posse with Bobcat, DJ Pooh, and of course the LA Posse core members, Muffla and Big Dad. And this album is a masterpiece. I remember first hearing it, being blown away. It's 1987, still at a point where not that many rappers were releasing full-length albums, and even rap groups. I'd say this is the last year, or 87 is around the year when things started really taking off and more people were putting out albums, but still, it was still not really the business until 88, which we'll get to in a second, when the real explosion came with albums. But in 87, with LL Cool J and Bigger and Deffer, you got I'm Bad, which is a phenomenal song. You got Candy, great story, extremely well sampled cover, appropriated by many people. You got the Bristol Hotel, another great story, that gets a little down and dirty. And then, of course, you got My Rhyme Ain't Done, another story that shows LL Cool J's imagination by incorporating cartoon characters and TV show characters and all these different things as he's telling the story about his adventures. And then, of course, we got the breakthrough smash I Need Love that helped change the face of rap forever, that reverberates from 1987 until today. And then you got the doo-wop, you got the breakthrough, you got all these songs and styles 357, Break It On Down. Bigger and Deffer is basically no skips, no filler, no nothing. It's phenomenal from top to bottom, start to finish. Rhymes, beats, concepts, execution, everything. Phenomenal piece of work. So right there, the Sophomore Jinx thing is already on shaky ground. But let's just go to that 1988 era with the second album, because in 1987, Public Enemy released its debut album, Yo Bum Rush the Show. Now, of course, on there, you're going to get yours. My Uzi Weighs a Ton, Too Much Posse, Public Enemy #1. All phenomenal songs, great music, a lot of messages on there. But, you know, this really introduced the Bomb Squad and what they were going to be doing sonically with taking things in a very different direction. And Chuck D, of course, has introduced the hard rhymer, phenomenal artist, amazing. But 1988, when rap really explodes, and in my opinion, the best year in rap history, that's where we get one of, if not the absolute best albums in rap history, with It Takes a Nation of Millions to Hold Us Back. Now, Yo Bum Rush the Show is here. It Takes a Nation of Millions is off the charts. Kind of like, I think, same with Radio's here. Bigger and Deffer is somewhere up here. You can't even see it on my little screen. But bottom line is, you got Bring the Noise, you got Don't Believe the Hype, you got Night of Living Bassheads, you got Louder Than a Bomb, you got Black Steel and the Hour of Chaos. The beats, the rhymes, Flavor Flav emerges even more than he had on Yo Bum Rush the Show. Cole Lampin with flavor, and then of course adding a lot of flavor throughout all the different songs. Like It Takes a Nation of Millions to Hold Us Back is a brilliant masterpiece of an album. Big Daddy Kane and I did a best albums on there. There's the link right there for y'all to check it out if you haven't watched that yet. Big Daddy Kane breaks down why he thinks it's the best album of all time. And after listening to Kane's breakdown, it's easy to see why he feels that way and why it's hard to dispute the fact that it's a masterpiece. So we got LL Cool J, we got Public Enemy taking us from 85 to 88. Now, one of the people that directly was inspired by Chuck D in particular, and of course LL Cool J, but as we go and show that this is not just the East Coast phenomenon and also not just a 1980s phenomenon, this not really Sophomore Jinx thing, we get to Ice Cube. Now in 1990, Ice Cube released his first album, America's Most Wanted, which right out the gate, The Brother You Love to Hate, just astounding. And when I was first hearing him say, "Fuck you, Ice Cube," I was like, wow, this is amazing. Coming off the heels of what he had done with N.W.A, you know, bringing into the 1990s Gangster's Fairy Tale, Once Upon a Time in the Projects, Who's the Mac, It's a Man's World. All these songs really show Ice Cube being brilliant and being someone that right out the gate has shown that he didn't need N.W.A in order to deliver a masterful album. And in fact, he shined probably more than people even understood he would be able to because of his brilliance on America's Most Wanted. But wait, the sophomore album, is it going to be a Jinx by Ice Cube? No, absolutely not. Death Certificate comes out in 1991, his second album. Now, like with It Takes a Nation of Millions to Hold Us Back with Public Enemy, I believe that Death Certificate is one of the best rap albums of all time, probably in the top 3. You know, it's a masterpiece from start to finish. It shows Cube getting deeper into his social political commentary on a much deeper, darker, denser feel. He's got a lot of stuff with the Nation of Islam that he talks about on this album, and it's, you know, just a masterpiece. My Summer Vacation is probably my favorite Ice Cube song, if not one of my favorite Ice Cube songs, but it's a brilliant examination of the gang migration from Southern California throughout the rest of the country. And he's going from Central South Los Angeles into Missouri in the song. And it's just a very powerful, sobering look at how drugs and gangs were spreading throughout the United States in the early 1990s. And Cube gave a brilliant snapshot of that. I thought of My Summer Vacation. Look Who's Burning deals with STDs. Alive on Arrival details and documents and bemoans the terrible health system that we have in the United States, especially if you don't have insurance, especially if you're black and brown in an underserved community. And that song, it just shows how terrible and how bad things were going on, sadly, with King Drew Medical Center in South Los Angeles at the time, where people were going in for broken legs and ending up dead. And that's not an exaggeration. And Death Certificate has another one of Ice Cube's best songs, the Posse Cut Colorblind, which looks at the gang reality in Southern Los Angeles, or Southern California, I should say, and really breaks that down in a very sobering and somber way. And you got so many great guest appearances. Coolio's on there, rest in peace. You got Cam, you got Threat, you got Ice Cube, of course, D.O.C, JD. It's an amazing song, and one of the more powerful songs you'll ever hear about gang banging. And, you know, as the album concludes with Us, this is a very powerful look at Ice Cube realizing that the Black community also needs to look at itself in the mirror at times too. And I thought that was a very powerful, self-reflective song that ends Death Certificate, even though there's one more song that we all know. But Us really, I thought, was a powerful examination of, you know, taking people to task that aren't doing the right thing. But the album really ends ultimately with No Vaseline, which by many people is considered one of the best diss songs of all time. I would agree with that. But bottom line is, as brilliant as America's Most Wanted is, Death Certificate is, to me, out of this league, man. It's just a phenomenal piece of work. And again, this Sophomore Jinx thing is crazy to me. Now, one of my favorite groups at the time, as Ice Cube was emerging as a solo artist, Tribe Called Quest was also emerging. And in 1990, they had People's Instinctive Travels in the Paths of Rhythm. And this is one of my favorite albums of all time as well. It has a lot of amazing samples that hadn't been used before. It has really Q-Tip emerging as an amazing producer and rapper and storyteller. Fife is here mainly on cameos, but Ali Shaheed Muhammad and Jarobi also carried the weight. Mr. Muhammad is a great song, one of my favorite beats on the album. Doesn't get talked about as much because you got Bonita Applebaum, you know, phenomenal song there. You got Can I Kick It, another phenomenal song, which has a great remix as well. And you got Push It Along, which is one of my favorite appearances from Fife on the album. You got Ham and Eggs. And this album is so great. Scarface and I did the best albums on it. You can check it out up there if you haven't seen that one. And, you know, the fact that Scarface loves People's Instinctive Travels in the Paths of Rhythm shows you how great it is, in the sense that that's not an album. I'd say most people would probably think that Scarface is sitting around thinking it's one of the best albums of all time, but I do, and Scarface does too. And of course, Scarface and I, I mentioned Scarface a lot in my book, The History of Gangster Rap, so check that out if you haven't already. But with the Sophomore Jinx, like, really, you know, we're in the 90s now, and when we get to 91, we got Death Certificate, but we also have The Low End Theory by Tribe Called Quest. Now, in my opinion, from what I've heard, most of my friends, people, things I've read, seen, heard about, most people think Low End Theory is better, and not only better, but a lot better than People's Instinctive Travels in the Paths of Rhythm. I actually prefer the debut album, but by no means is the Low End Theory falling off. It's got Excursions, it's got Bugging Out, Check the Rhyme, Jazz, We Got Jazz, and of course, the album ends with Scenario. So right there, just those handful of songs I mentioned show that this is no sophomore jinx, no sophomore slump by Tribe Called Quest. In fact, they changed their sound, they changed their style. Fife has become more prominent on the Low End Theory, and it just shows that these guys are on fire and show no signs of slowing down. Speaking of slowing down, you know, we've got the East Coast, we got the West Coast. Let me take it to the Midwest for my next example of something that does not fall in line with this sophomore jinx fallacy, and that would be Twista. Of course, back then he was Tongue Twister back in 92 with Running Off at the Mouth with Mr. Tongue Twister. He set in Guinness Book of World Records for fastest rapper alive. But I remember at the time a lot of people saying, oh, this is a gimmick, like this dude is whack and all that, none of which I agreed with. He just happened to be able to rap extremely fast. So Twista, I think, unfairly was dissed. universally almost kind of like, oh yeah, he was cool, but he just, that's not my thing or what have you. So as time passes, Twista comes back or Tongue Twista comes back, reemerges as Twista. And of course, he demolishes his appearance on Do or Die's Po Pimp. And then, he comes back with the Mighty Adrenaline Rush in 1997. And this album, his second album, even though his name had changed, it's the same dude. Man, Adrenaline Rush is a phenomenal piece of material, man, from top to bottom, produced by the legendary Trackster, who puts it down. The title track is astounding. You got Twista running off at the mouth, rapping at the speed of sound, and then you got Buck, Young Buck from Psychodrama, rapping that slow, eerie, menacing thing, and their, give and take, push and pull that they have on the title track for Adrenaline Rush is amazing. Then you have Death Before Dishonor, you got Overdose, you got Get It Wet, you got Emotions. So right there, Twista's showing you he can rap about the women, he can rap about street stuff, he can do a collaboration, he can rap fast, and you can hear everything because he enunciates so well, and he does it regardless of how fast he's rapping. So right there, again, it just shows that this Sophomore Jinx thing is ridiculous. And I don't know why, even in the late 90s or the mid 90s, late 90s, by the time Adrenaline Rush is coming out, that people are still thinking, oh man, it's the Sophomore Jinx, the Sophomore slump. Really? Because we got the East Coast, we got the West Coast, we got the Midwest, and now we're going to take it down south. Because as Twista was emerging, we have, in my opinion, the greatest group of all time, Outcast, also emerging in 1994 with Southern Playalistic Cadillac Music. Now, Outcast is, in my opinion, the best rap group of all time, and their debut album is a masterpiece. As Big Boy famously says on Skew It on the Barbie, he wants that other half a mic because it got 4.5 mics in the source. I think it should have got 5 mics, but neither here nor there. You got, so many amazing things. Ain't No Thing, you got Players Ball, you got Hootie Hoo, you got Funky Ride, you got Get Up, Get Out. It's just too many things on there. And I think this is a extremely, extremely high bar to clear to say that you didn't fall off with your second album. But Outkast does show that in 1996 when they come back with AT Aliens. A lot of people prefer this to Southern Playalistic Cadillac Music. I don't. I prefer Southern Playalistic Cadillac Music, but I will say, regardless and easily, by no means could anyone say AT Aliens is a jinx or it was whack or it fell off. In fact, it's clearly one of the best rap albums ever made, of course, too, which is why Two Dope Boys in a Cadillac, the title track, Jazzy Bell, Elevators, all these songs are classics. All these songs are masterful and show, Andre 3000 and Big Boy just killing the game, man. And they're showing that you can get better. You can do different sound, different style from one album to the next. You can be phenomenal and keep that up throughout your career and show no signs of slowing down. And I don't subscribe to sales really equaling potency, but AT Aliens sold more than Southern Playalistic Cadillac Music. So clearly Outkast fan base was growing at this time, which to me also shows the merit of their work. And as we get to one more example, also from the South, because he's one of my favorite artists of all time, Project Pat. We are blessed to have him on Unique Access Entertainment. You can check out one of my clips with him right there. But man, Project Pat. Now, this is going into the 2000s. So in 99, Project Pat drops Getty Green. North Memphis, you got Ballers with Juvenile and a lot of the Cash Money dudes. You got Stabbers playing off the Backstabbers with Crucial Conflict, another tip to Chicago. But man, Project Pat put it down. That Ballers is where you get the Sipping on the Syrup line that 3 6 Mafia would later use to deliver its biggest song, or one of its biggest songs, you would say. But take them platinum for sure, Sipping on some syrup. So, that's also a hard bar. But when Project Pat comes back in 2001, when Mr. Don't Play, Everything's Working, this was, in my opinion, the best album of 2001. It's a masterpiece. And it really does what the best gangster rappers do, which is show you the pitfalls of the life of crime. We can get gangster, He's talking about getting, a dude snitching on him, violating his parole, going to jail, or he wouldn't snitch. So he goes to jail because he violated his parole. Don't Save Her. That's a classic song about dudes not letting women take advantage of them. You got Cheese and Dope, A Whole Lot of Weed. And of course, we have the smash Project Pat's biggest song of all time, Chicken Head, which still gets people on TikTok and on various challenges on a regular basis, despite coming out in 2001. So here we have from the 80s, from the mid 1980s and 1985 from LL Cool J and Bigger and Deffer in 87. Fast forward, I'm going more than 15 years with Project Pat with Getty Green and Project Pat with Mr. Don't Play Everything's Working, showing you consistently from different styles, different regions, different decades, different everything, that this sophomore jinx thing is ridiculous. So I just want to address that here on the 1st and 15th. Hit me up in the comments section. Let me know some examples you think that are or are not examples of the sophomore jinx. I've given you plenty to show you that while that may exist in certain circumstances, it's definitely not a rule. It's definitely not the norm. And many of the greatest artists in rap history did not fall victim to the sophomore jinx. If anything, they got better. And of course, there's so many other examples that I could cite, but I just wanted to take y'all and show you different decades, different cities, different regions, different styles of rap, and everything to show you that it's not true. It's just not true. Anyway, so there it is. I'm Soren Baker here on the 1st and 15th. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Join our membership. Thank you to those who are supporting us and help us get to the next level of the game. I'm Soren Baker, and I'll see you next time on the 1st and 15th.